Hey, you cats out there. Remember that time we were Q? That was a time that Thomas Schoenberger was running the Cicada 3301 game and puzzle. They called it Q. And they were looking for the smartest people in the world to help them defeat what they called at that time the deep state. But what we have found in our research are actually the British Pilgrim Society. And if you walk it back further, it's a 4,000-year-old death and usury cult called the Babylonian Radhanite merchant bankers. So we had just finished our Gospel of Sophia trilogy, which is 3 books that you can easily get on Amazon. And I was getting a little bit bored because Douglas was working on his next 2 titles, The Eternal Curriculum and The Eternal Ethers. And by the way, he's got 20 books coming down the way this year alone. So we've just been writing like crazy and cannot wait to get the intel out to you. Well, anyway, I was getting a little bored, so I started going out into this thing called alt media. I was finding that I couldn't get news on the regular media, and I wanted to see what everybody else was saying out there. And the only person I had ever heard of was this thing called Alex Jones. So I went, listened to him for a while until I realized that that wasn't really going to give me the answers. But along the way, I found this group, and it was called Cicada 3301. They had a puzzle challenge that year. Again, it was called Q. But the bonus was that the winners of the challenge would get to hold the Spear of Destiny. And many of you cats know what happened to that story. But that's for another day, because I want to get to a very important point here about what we, the people, need to do now to protect our Constitution. Well, anyway, y'all know that I am married to a really smart guy. When I would be sitting in the chair next to him in our study, I'd listen to him. We were married in 2012, and I would listen to him, and I'm going, oh my gosh, everybody needs to hear what I am hearing. So we started putting together videos, and in the very beginning, they were called Betsy and Thomas. That's where many of you met us then. Then later, we wrote for State of the Nation and the Millennial Report under the name Anonymous Patriots. Of course, we were a little timid coming out then because we didn't know what the repercussions would be. But anyway, let's get back to the puzzle. I asked Douglas, being the smartest guy in the room, hey, let's try to solve this puzzle because you win a great prize. There's a Spear of Destiny out there. Let's get it. So he went in and he did solve the puzzle. But in the process of us getting to know Thomas, we also got to be familiar with some other people that were in his network, and they were using our material from the American intelligence media to feed into the early things of Q. Now, remember, in the very beginning, Q was an original thing, and then it got taken over by rogue groups. But in the beginning, a lot of the material was coming from the American intelligence media. And they called them messages from Q. Once they started using our material, they were reporting phenomenal results. They were getting a ton of hits. And then on top of that, a few years prior to being married to Douglas, I had done a special training or education with a group called Entrepreneur Organization. And they have this thing called the Birthing of Giants, where you go for 3 years straight in a row to a program that's offered off campus of MIT. Not that it's associated with MIT, but that's where it's located. And they bring in these amazing speakers. Well, that year that I enrolled in the program for the 3 years, the topic was really about social media networking. And I didn't know a lot about it, but I began to learn about how powerful it is, and actually how just one person in a small group of people could change the conversation most anywhere in the world. I found that fascinating. But I wasn't really in a business that I could do anything about it. As many of you know, I was in the school business at that time. But I did see the problems with Facebook, and I felt that there was a problem about the spying and the surveillance that was going on in Facebook. So I tried to create, we actually did work on it. I had engineers help me with it, to create our own space called Mud Pies and Butterflies. And if you put that on YouTube, you can see some of our old promos for that. And that was going to be a social networking system for schools. But then we got to the point with the engineers where I said, what is the underlying platform that we're parking all of this stuff on? we have to get a license for that. And I knew we had to get a license because I had just spent 3 years on what to do, how to manage social media. So I knew that if I was going to operate on someone else's platform, I'd need to get a license. Well, they said that there really wasn't such a thing, that IBM had put this software out for everybody to be used for free. I said, no way. IBM doesn't give anything away from free. There must be a catch. We did a little investigation, and indeed, we found that it was something called open source. Well, I thought that was very suspicious, and I didn't want to expose myself and my company at that time to that. So we backed out of it. We put it back on the shelf. Now, isn't it interesting, so many years later in our research, as Douglas and I are researching, we come across the very man who invented social media networking. And he claimed that it was stolen, the technology was stolen by the government. We did a lot of research. All you cats know about it. And for sure, IBM, Eclipse Foundation, DARPA, the Highlands Group, stole it from Michael and then made it open source. So that means basically they have the backdoor keys to anything you're putting out in the internet. Oh, and I got to tell you, we've got a great new product coming out that's going to take care of that for all the cats out here. It's called My Skiff, and there's going to be more information on that coming later. But let me liken it to this. Let's say you have a house, and your house has a back door, and the deep state has the key, so they can get into anything, your emails, or anything they can get into. They just open the door because you are doing it on a platform that was stolen, and they just have the backdoor keys to everything. Well, we have built a system that puts a barbed wire, 20-high fence, electrified, everything around your house, so to speak, so they can't get in with their keys to get into your house. And we're going to make that available to all you cats, because what I'm going to present in just a minute, you cats are going to need to communicate with each other on secure lines. Okay, well, let's go back to Douglas. Oh no, I want one more place to go. When I was back at this program, Birthing of Giants, I wanted to do something in social media. So I started inquiring, and what I found out is you can do the mechanics of it, but if you don't have content, your information is not going to scale in the internet. The key to social media networking is to have content. And I really didn't have any content to share, not until I got with Douglas and I listened to him and I went, oh my gosh, now that is content. I can wrap that baby up and send it through the internet. And that's exactly what we did. Going back to the puzzle of Q, Douglas did solve the puzzle. And in the process of solving the puzzle, we got to know some people affiliated with the original Q. And they told us they were using material from the American intelligence media, the stuff we were posting early on, and they put them out as messages from Q. They were getting phenomenal results. And then we saw one after another, groups came in to infiltrate and eventually control the group as a limited hangout psyop. So that's why we dumped all the Q stuff and really cautioned people that if you were going to get in there, you really truly had to do your own research. Okay. But what happened in that process is that Douglas and I realized our mission. We realized our calling. You know, we all wait. What am I supposed to do? What is our calling? Well, we realized ours at that point. As teachers, we know that when you teach well, people will be nourished with truth and information. They love it. That's what they want. They don't want propaganda and lies. In fact, many of you probably hated history class. Well, now to find out that it was propaganda from the British Pilgrim Society. Like, we never won the American Revolutionary War, but that's another subject for another day. Anyway, we knew what good education could do for the human soul. And so we transformed our Q into AIM cats. And here we are today in a global truth movement that is truly grassroots and on fire. One of the things that Q was chided about in the beginning, or still was, I don't know, I just dropped following it, was this notion of trusting the plan and that white hats had everything under control. Well, we did find a white hat, and that led us to solving a lot of our issues with the timeline of history as it was being taught to us in our indoctrination centers. And so thanks to Michael McKibben for being the top researcher with AFI and the Minds. He's just done he and his team have just done a brilliant job. And I feel so confident that we have, since 2015, I can say, and I think you can too, There is no law and order in America anymore. There's a two-tier justice system. The evil ones that are in charge can get away with murder, literally, and never see a jail cell. They can commit treason and never go to Gitmo. Although Q, once it was taken over by the rogue groups, would let you think that that was going to happen. No, it's not going to happen in that way. But we have a plan. You see, Q talked about the plan and said, trust the plan. And AIM-CATS all along said, no, we've got to work the plan. But what was the plan? Well, the plan has had to be presented at the right time with the right group for the right cause. And I think we've reached that time in history. We know that our Congress and your parliaments are filled with traitors. We tried in the United States to vote them out and put a new person in charge. But what did they do? They rigged the election. They rigged it. The British Pilgrim Society, Mark Malloch Brown, Jeffrey Patty, and you know the group. They have this software called Optech. They put it in the machines, and it counts the votes in cyberspace. It fractionalizes it, it dices it, slices it, and they always come out with the winner that they want to rule over America. And then we found out that this has been going on a long time. So even though we thought we were voting and we thought we were moving things in a peaceful manner, trying to change things in a peaceful manner, it didn't happen. All of our elections are rigged from the local, state to the federal. So you cannot trust the ballot box. Well, if you can't trust the ballot box, what do? And why it's so important for Americans to sit down and listen to Aunt Betsy here is that we are the country with let's just call it for YouTube's sake, the Second Amendment. We have things that other countries don't have. And I read the comments all over the internet. People around the world are wondering when Americans are going to save the world using their Second Amendment. Well, how does that work? We just can't go out and use it randomly. We got to have a plan. YouTube was so threatened by our Betsy and Thomas shows that 2 to 3 years after they were posted, they removed our entire channel. People ask me, weren't you devastated? All that work. I mean, we had over close to 800 videos. I said, no, it's fine. This is war. We're in an information war. You can expect casualties. Our site was a casualty. But what it did, it showed me how far behind the enemy was to the narrative. Folks, we are leading the narrative. Don't anyone give you the idea that we are not winning. It doesn't look like it right now, but we have the upper hand. So flashback. We are out of the queue. YouTube has shut us down, but that's okay because we're marching on. Why? Because we're passionate teachers. That's who we are. We're not warriors, we're teachers. And we want to make sure that everybody out there who tunes in has as much information as they can get from a place that they trust. So what we did is we started something called the AIM School of Truth, and we started sending out CAT reports. Now, the CAT reports stands for Citizens Addicted to Truth, although later we changed it to be more exact. We are Christians addicted to truth. And people would get a CAT report in, and that was their lesson plan for the day. It was sort of like we're homeschooling adults all over the world in our one-room schoolhouse called the American Intelligence Media. And we've had some phenomenal results from that with graduates that have come from the AIM School of Truth. You will see them in our Gab timeline as they bring forward information, articles that resonate with the truth as we have presented it. But there was another thing that we had to do, and that was we had to really look at our history and see what the truth was, because we knew the history books were largely published with the Pilgrim Society's seal of approval. So we knew we weren't getting truth. I know everyone loves to read Quigley's book and say that is the book on history, but no, it's not. It's somewhat limited. And so we wanted to get something that was vast, expansive, that had tons of documentation. This is how we arrived at understanding how the power structure is working in the world. Our Congress is controlled by foreign actors. It's controlled by the British Pilgrim Society. It's In no way, except for the few times they throw us crumbs, is it representative of the American people. And we did not vote them in. They were selected by Optech in this rigged election system. I mean, our apologies to the world, but we have been asleep at the wheel. We Americans have been just totally asleep at the wheel. But man, we have got to jolt out of this, or soon our young men and women are going to be drafted in never-ending bankers' wars in Ukraine, Israel, or who knows where. Okay, but anyway, so we rewrote history, and here's a link. You can go in there. It's a massive file. We do recommend that people download it. Take the time. When we look at all the years we took to write this and research it, you take the time to get yourself a hard drive and download it. I think the last I saw it was like 162 gigabytes or something, but you can go in and see how big it is. You might want that for your future generations. Now, why am I here today by myself? Because we have to activate the next part of the plan. And we had to wait for the right time to implement it. So we are calling on all cats to get the message out to your downlines. I cannot talk about the plan on YouTube. It will be taken off. The plan is outlined at the Cat Report. And if you've been following our recent gabs, you will see even more details on how that plan is to be executed. I cannot outline the plan here on YouTube. This is just to let you know that the information is there. And basically, there are two types of groups that we need to pay attention to. These would be the invaders. These are people that have come across our borders, both north and south, east and west, that are here for the purpose of taking down America from the inside. We have techniques that we suggest you use and fortifying your homestead, yourself, your family against invaders. And then the next group, and this group we really have to pay attention to, and these are traitors in our government. And these traitors are actually, and have for a long time, fueling wars all around the world to benefit the bankers, the merchants, the top elite, if you want to call them elite. And those wars are going to keep on until we stop it. We can't vote them out. We can't take them to court. The courts are all rigged. My gosh, Hillary Clinton's still running around threatening people. So that's not going to work either. There's only one thing here, folks. It's the Second Amendment. And we need to come together, focus on these two groups in the manner or like that we have suggested on other platforms that you'll have to make an effort to go find. We're looking for brave men who have a skill set that I, at 67 years old, as a traditional wife, we are looking for courageous people to step up and protect our country and to get rid of this treasonous government that's in place that is on a path to genocide humanity. They are going to kill us all and steal the planet. If that's not a reason to step up and activate the plan, I don't know what. Why am I so passionate? Because I have young men and women in my family who will be fodder for these globalist pigs. So I urge you to get involved, find out what the plan is, find out what you can do to implement the plan, and let's save America. Let's literally save the world from total and complete annihilation. God bless each and every one of you. May we live together in peace.